Now we're ready for the conclusion of The Golden Bull. Chapter 32, Song for Aban. Despite the tension in the room, Jomar felt calm when Zepha's fingers began to strum the lyre. With his eyes closed, he heard the flowing music as Zepha's pure voice joined the deep sounds of the lyre. We sing now of Aban, whose hands were strong and skillful, who departed from this dwelling, leaving empty places in the heart. We sing now of Aban, whose spirit seeks a dwelling amid work he joyfully created with gold and hammer, lapis and tongue. We sing now of Aban, who once more dwells among us, whose parents' hearts are lifted. His restless spirit has come home. Jomar knew the end of the song was near when Zepha began to repeat the last line of the last verse. But this time, with a subtle shift of rhythm, her voice and the strumming of the lyre expressed a mood less melancholy and more accepting. Jomar opened his eyes and looked at Sita and Nari. From their rapt faces he knew that Zepha's music had fallen like rain upon an arid field. Too full of feeling to speak, Gamil started to leave the house, but Nari held him back with a hand on his arm. Zepha's song brings peace to Aban and to us all. I'm coming with you to visit your mother. I'll see her every day, as I used to do, so you can go back to your job. Gamil smiled at her with teary eyes. We'll welcome this. He and Nari left the house together. Kurgal spoke to Sita. I had no intention of interrupting so solemn an occasion. The high priestess ordered me to come to your house to listen to a young girl play and sing. I thought I could do so. At the same time I removed the lyre from your workshop. He frowned. I did not think the girl would be playing on this lyre. Sita nodded to indicate he had heard the director, but said nothing. Kurgal waited a moment, then turned to Zepha. It's clear you're without training, but you played well and your song was full of feeling. I'm selecting you to be a member of the temple musicians. Like the others, you'll be housed, clothed, and fed at the temple. Some day you may be asked to play on this lyre again, but only after a long period of study. Thank you, Zepha whispered. But do you know about Malik and me? I do, Kurgal said. You and Sita have no reason to fear him, because the high priestess has used her powers well. She has decreed that Malik is no longer a temple official, and you are no longer a slave. Jomar rejoiced at Butati's intervention, but thought with a pang of the loss of Zepha from his life. Will I ever be able to see my sister? He asked the music director. Kurgal nodded. The temple will not be her prison. Her training will be rigorous, but she can come here when she has time to do so. He turned to Zepha. Gather your things together. We'll go to the new dwelling place of both you and the lyre. Zepha's face was one of slow comprehension of what was happening to her. I will have a life of music, she said softly. Kurgal gave a slight smile, then looked around the workshop. Do you have any unused gold for me to take back to the treasury? Jomar pointed to the small fragment of gold that he'd seen clinging to the edge of the flat stone. Your apprentice is honest, the director said to Sita. Keep the gold as a gift of gratitude from the temple. Here's something else that belongs to the temple, Sita said, holding out the lapis bead. For the ceremony today, this precious gem contained the spirit of my precious... He hesitated. Our precious son. Kurgal held up his palm. Keep the bead as well, so Aban's spirit will always stay with you in your dwelling. Sita bent low in appreciation. For the last time he billowed out the cotton cover, which settled gracefully over the lyre. Kurgal gave a signal to the guards, who carefully shouldered the great instrument and walked slowly out of the workroom. After Jomar had lifted Zepha's basket to her shoulders, she turned and spoke to him. All this happened because you made me a lyre so long ago. I made you a toy, Zepha, Jomar said. You took the toy and made music with it. Music that moves people who know how to listen. Zepha's face filled with radiance, and she threw her arms around him. Now you're more than my brother. You're my friend. Jomar embraced her and watched as Zepha bowed to Sita and Nari and left the house with the music director. Her new life was beginning, and so was his. Chapter 33. The river is rising. Sita brought the work tables out from the walls. The ceremony was so important, Jomar, because of you and Zepha, our son had a proper funeral, and Nari's heart has softened. You told me that she used to laugh a lot, Jomar said. Perhaps she will again. Sita sighed. I would welcome this. Now that the lyre is finished, what have you decided about staying here or returning home?" Instead of answering, Jomar joined Sita in rearranging the room. Sita waited. "You're quiet. You're not sure?" In that instant Jomar knew he was sure. "It's so hard to know that I can't see my parents again, but I want to stay with you and work to become a goldsmith, a fine one, like you." "I'm glad you're staying with me, but you've misunderstood the rules that govern apprentices and their masters," Sita said. "You can't live with your parents, but you can still see them. Word could be sent to the farm that they should come to the city for the great New Year ceremony. Zephyr will be a part of the celebration, and they'll be able to see the lyre you helped create." "I can see them again," Jomar said, "but how will they know to come here?" "Perhaps the slave Katnu could go to the farm and invite them," Sita said. Jomar nodded. "Zephyr hoped the gods would reward Katnu for his kindness to us. He'll no longer be working under Malak, and my father will need help in bringing the fields back to life. Do you think he could take my place on the farm? My parents are good and kind people, and this could be Katnu's reward." "I'll speak to an official at the temple to see if this can be arranged." Sita bent to recover the bit of gold. "I was aware of this fragment and glad you called attention to it. There's just enough gold to make a small bead for Zephyr." "You told me how difficult it is to make these little beads," Jomar said. "Now I'll be able to watch you do it." "Tomorrow we'll do it together," Sita said. "My hope is this gift will heal all wounds." Sita looked around the empty workshop. "This has been a long, demanding day. I need to relax with my friends." He turned to leave the house. "Do what you like. Just be home in time for the evening meal." Nari had cleaned the workroom for the ceremony, so there was no need for him to sweep or return the tools to their hooks. The daily task of making order out of disorder was strangely satisfying, but now the afternoon stretched ahead of him, empty. Jomar sat at one of the work tables and cradled his head on his arms. He thought of the long morning filled with terror and reconciliation. He would stay with the goldsmith, but he knew he would miss working alongside his father to restore the farm to growth and abundance. In the quiet workshop he imagined hearing squawking birds flying low over freshly seeded fields. He could see in his mind the new bright green shoots of date palms. He raised his head and moved his hands as if touching the smooth wet skin of the little calf born in hard times. Jomar thought of the golden bull lyre that had also experienced a difficult birth into the world. He could not leave this place where such beauty was created. Currents of energy flooded Jomar's body. He sprang up and ran outside. "Camille," he called out, "Sita heard that the snows in the northern mountains are finally melting. Let's go to the river and see if the water has started to rise." The end.